Without a shadow of a doubt, best Raw of 2013 ever. And I'll be damned if they can top this one. I hope they do. I'd always love to see things improve from here. But how can you top this? So I already did this once, and for some reason my mic was acting up. It must have gotten bumped during the video, or the recording, and it ended up stopped working, and the audio file actually got messed up. So I'm going to do this again. But this time I'm going to make sure to only touch on the good stuff. Okay, well that's a lie, but I'm going to elaborate less on the bad stuff, which there wasn't too much. But anyway, I'm stalling. Let's get into this one. We start out with Alberto Del Rio, who came off of Payback. He turned full-blown heel. If he hadn't turned full-blown heel at Payback, he did tonight. He's talking about how he worked the head of Dolph Ziggler the same way that Ziggler worked the leg to become world champion when he cashed in, and how people are being hypocritical. I don't care. I don't like I don't like Alberto Del Rio as a character. He's a better heel, but because the crowd is not going to cheer him when you put him up against a guy like Dolph Ziggler. So that match at Payback, I have very mixed reactions about, because I really hate that they took the belt off of Ziggler so quickly, but just the way they did it was perfect. Like, they managed to do the double turn, and now the crowd can get behind Ziggler as a face, and WWE can roll with that. But I don't know. I have the mixed reaction. I really don't want Del Rio to be the champion. Hopefully Ziggler wins it back at Money in the Bank, and that's the end of that. But anyway, I don't know why my mic seems like it's being quiet, but anyway. So we have that. Del Rio comes out talking all about that. CM Punk comes out, and he's like, because Del Rio had mentioned about he's the best, and Punk, he's the best in the world. So he's like, I'm going to challenge you to a match tonight. And then Paul Heyman's like, whoa, hold up, Punk. We didn't talk about this before. And that leads into a backstage discussion. Vicky does book the match, so later on in the night, later on in this review, I'll talk about that match. But anyway, because so much happened after the match. But anyway, Punk and Heyman have a backstage segment. And CM Punk says, well, since when am I your client? I was your friend, you were my manager, but I'm not your client. And I don't want you to come out to ringside anymore, but I'll always be a Paul Heyman guy. But I just don't want you to come out to ringside anymore. Paul Heyman ends up leaving. And later on in the night, right before Punk goes out to the match, Paul Heyman comes out and he's like, no matter what anyone says, and people might not agree with this, but I love you. And they hug, and then Punk goes out to the match. I'll get back into that later. So then we have a match between Team Rhodes Scholars and Sheamus. While I don't like what happened after the match, I'm only going to touch on what I did like. Sheamus winding up for a Brogue Kick. Sandow gets the roll-up, and while it was a handicap match, at least Sandow gets the win. I'd love to see these two guys go into a deeper feud heading into Money in the Bank, even if both men are in a Money in the Bank match, whether they get their own slot. But I'd like to see these two go into an actual feud. Love to see Sandow win. His mic work is awesome. The feud, they actually had build to it heading into Payback. And they gave it a decent match time. They gave it about 10 minutes. So I think these two could put on a feud heading into Money in the Bank. I hope that's what WWE's going for, but I guess we'll see as things go on. So next up, we actually saw, I think there was a Divas segment. Not too much actually happened there. AJ said she was the best Diva, like the best Divas champion of all time, and she called out the Divas in the locker room to come out if you think they're more powerful than her. Stephanie McMahon's music hits the crowd. Everyone, you hear a lot of ohs, because AJ's talking all big about herself, and then, now you're up against the boss. Stephanie McMahon, she's had her history. They do a little thing, you could pretty much guess how that went. Stephanie McMahon using her power and authority over AJ. She can cost her job, her title, take everything away from her. Stephanie gets interrupted by Caitlyn, and the other Divas, they come out to some music, whether it was Caitlyn's or generic, I'm not sure. But Stephanie McMahon's leaving, she walks up the ramp, and she goes to Caitlyn, well, I'll give you a bye this time because of what's been going on, but never interrupt me again. Maybe that'll lead to something later on down the road, who knows. But Caitlyn goes down the ramp saying how AJ broke her, toyed with her like she was a puppet, and then she'll do the same to AJ. Caitlyn slides in the ring. They get into a little scuffle, a cat fight, if you will. And the crowd is chanting for Big E to go in there and break it up. Big E just sort of stands and watches at ringside for a little bit. And then finally he pulls AJ out of there, grabs her by the foot and pulls her out. And he carries AJ away, kicking and screaming. AJ's like, "Give her my title!" And, she's like, none of you will ever. Okay, I'm not even going to try that. But, none of them will ever take it from her. She'll be the Divas champion forever or something like that. Kicking and screaming, Big E takes her away. Then we have Zeb Coulter comes out for a segment, and as soon as he started talking, I knew he was talking about Antonio Cesaro. So he's like, yeah, so to prove that Jack Swagger and I are not, he didn't use the word racist, but that's pretty much what he meant, and I can't remember the word he did use, but to prove that we're not racist, we have a non-native United States-born someone that pretty much he's going to be managing, and it's Antonio Cesaro. He comes out. Coulter's like, he speaks 5 languages, the most important being English, and then Cesaro comes out. He has a match against William Regal. WWE seems like they took the uppercut away from him. Cesaro hasn't been going to that lately. He's been doing that sleeper hold, which it's a great sleeper hold because he swings them around and they just pretty much go limp and they're unconscious. Then he puts them from that into the neutralizer. But I'd like to see some uppercuts coming back pretty soon. So Cesaro, even doing the We the People things, put a flag over him. It had a snake and it said, "Don't tread on us." So he put the flag over William Regal. And it was almost like they were citing the Pledge of Allegiance, just doing the We the People thing. Just like Jack Swagger. I don't know if Swagger got injured maybe, or because of his, the DUI, maybe he's on a drug suspension right now or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. But anyway, I'm going to move on from that segment. There were some other things that went down. Nothing really that I can remember as something significant. There was Randy Orton versus Daniel Bryan in what was the WWE Active match, became no disqualification. Why would you have a no disqualification with countout? Tell me this. You did the same with Curtis Axel and John Cena. What is the point of having a no disqualification match if you can just get yourself counted out? Whatever, that's not the point. Nobody got counted out, for goodness sake, but they were selling a Daniel Bryan injury, stinger in his ribs, or not hamstring, his stomach or something like that. Not exactly sure what type of angle they're going for, if this is it could still play to the weakest link sort of thing, because he ended up, the doctors came out and they had to stop the match. Daniel Bryan couldn't compete. He seemed like he didn't know what was going on, did this really just happen? Did I really just lose by a forfeit, or sort of that sort of idea? But I'm not exactly sure. I could see how they could build from this, but I don't know what kind of angle they're trying to take with this. But anyway, Randy Orton helps him up, and I thought maybe he was going to hit an RKO when he picked him up, but no, he didn't. They just walk off. Hopefully they actually do turn Orton full-blown heel and get this feud, because I was talking with Brendan the other day. We tried to do a post-payback podcast. Technical difficulties with Skype. Anyway, so we were talking about how to get Daniel Bryan from point A to point C, being from the unified tag title picture to the WWE Championship against Cena potentially at SummerSlam, and how Randy Orton's the point B. Orton is the perfect guy to get him from the tag titles to the main event picture. We could potentially be seeing Daniel Bryan as the new face of the company. Maybe not literally right then, but symbolically that could be sort of the passing of the torch, potentially. Then we were talking about how the WWE can get Cena from point A to point C. I mean, because the Ryback thing is done. He put him through an ambulance. You cannot have those two feud again. There was a United States title match between Kane and Dean Ambrose. I didn't particularly like that. Shield came out and broke it up. Nothing really major happened about that. Poor Vicky Guerrero is torn between Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, and Vince McMahon. I honestly feel bad for her, but anyway. So yeah, that happened. Nothing really too important in my opinion. Ambrose retained. Then we saw the Mark Henry's. Okay, it wasn't. We started with Cena coming out. This was the point where I got up, grabbed a snack, all that stuff, taking the break. So Cena's talking about, the champ is here. Yeah, and then we come out, Mark Henry's music hits, and he comes out of the entrance. He walks down. Cena looks like he's going to leave. Mark Henry's like, no, you stay there. And I was kind of surprised at first. I didn't 100% believe that Mark Henry was retiring, because I figured if he would retire, they would save it for the end and have, like they did with guys like Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, save it for the very end, because you can't really, somebody retires, you can't put on something else after that. Nobody should have to follow that. That seems like almost torture. I mean, the respect just to give them the sort of the main event spot as their retirement. So anyway, Mark Henry comes out. He gave an emotional speech, and I actually believed he was retiring. He fooled everybody. He's talking about his kids and his wife, He's talking about how his wife will see more of him than she probably cares to. Going over his past history, his world champion, all that stuff. How he had a very successful career, and he has no regrets, that kind of stuff. The only title he had, JBL pointed out, the only title he hadn't held was the WWE Championship, which Cena had given to Mark Henry to sort of hold up, like while they were retiring. Mark Henry ends sort of talking to his daughter, saying, I'm coming home, and he's crying. I'm sure the fans are crying. I could feel tears coming. I didn't cry, but I could feel them. It was an emotional speech. If I had believed that he was retiring, I would have cried probably, but I was not 100% behind it. John Cena comes in. He's like, hold up the title, and he grabs Mark's hand, and they're both holding up the WWE Championship. Cena then puts the belt down, goes to hug Mark Henry, and this is the point where Mark Henry just becomes the greatest WWE entertainer of all time. Maybe not even just the WWE. He is the greatest pure entertainer of all time. I pointed out that his career has only gotten better as the years go on. Hasn't proven me wrong. It has still gotten better. You've never seen anyone really pull a fake retirement. I don't think anyone's ever done that. Mark Henry, he fooled everybody. He nailed that down to perfection. He was crying. The crowd was crying. Cena looked like he was, at some points, like he could have cried. Cena goes to hug Mark Henry. Mark Henry just freaking dunks him on his back. World's strongest slam. Starts ripping into his clothes, his suit. And he just looks down at Cena and is like, I still got a lot left. He comes back for a little bit of a later interview segment with whoever that diva interviewer is. And she's like, she was going to say something. Mark Henry's like, I had you all fooled. Don't even deny it. He's like, did I have you fooled? Don't answer that. I know you did. I know I fooled you. He fooled everybody. I'll give him that much. He's the greatest entertainer of all time. So Mark Henry, pretty much, he was given a match at Money in the Bank against John Cena for the WWE Championship. That's how you get John Cena from point A to point C. That's how you do it. And while I would really love to see Mark Henry win that title, because it was the only title he hasn't won yet, I just can't see it happening. I mean, with John Cena, if they want to do this, if they want to do Cena versus Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam, and Mark Henry wins the title at Money in the Bank, that means Cena would have to win it back at a Raw. I mean, maybe they would do a triple threat. That might actually work. A triple threat, or possibly even a fatal four-way, put together Orton, Bryan, Henry, and Cena. I'm jumping a little too far ahead, but that could maybe work. And then maybe do Night of Champions. But I mean, if they want to try to get Cena to SummerSlam to face Daniel Bryan, he's going to retain against Mark Henry. I'm going to enjoy this match. I love that it's happening. Even if Mark Henry doesn't win, this is how I was talking with Brendan. And post-Payback, we had no clue of how Cena was going to get to SummerSlam. They had nobody build up to possibly feud with Cena. People were talking about Mark Henry, how he beat Ryback. Why didn't he get the title shot? There you go. That answers both questions. Moving on. That was probably my favorite segment of the night. I don't know. There were a lot of good segments there tonight. But anyway, top two segments. That one and the one I'm going to touch on later. Curtis Axel beats Sin Cara in a squash match. I muted my TV because The Miz was on commentary, so if the crowd was chanting anything, I wasn't there to hear it. Anyway, he finished off with a DDT sort of maneuver, like a double underhook sort of thing. I only saw it out of the corner of my eye, so I can't describe it fully. Don't quote me on what I said about the DDT, but I'm going to go look it up later, and then, so yeah, that's how he won. It looked like a new finisher anyway. So then we had, hell, it could have even been a perfect plex. I was not paying that much attention. Anyway, so then we move on to the main event. If I missed anything, it probably wasn't important because the major things are sticking out in my mind right now. I'm touching on them. We have CM Punk and Alberto Del Rio, the match that they built up from earlier. I didn't pay attention to this match. I took a few glances up. I was laying down playing some Pokemon because I had pretty much, the first portion of Raw had got me. I was completely hooked on that. The second then when it let off, leading up to the Mark Henry, I wasn't paying much attention. I sort of lost interest. Mark Henry brought me back. I dropped off again. This match I wasn't paying attention to. Punk ends up hitting a go to sleep Del Rio had been working the arm the whole match. Punk hits a go to sleep. Del Rio rolls out of the ring. The momentum carries him out. Ricardo carries him off. They lose by count out. Ziggler runs out of the entrance and attacks Del Rio from behind. Ziggler runs Del Rio off to the side there. So Del Rio's out of the equation. Punk's looking up there like, wow, Ziggler he just did that? He just had that sort of CM Punk surprised look on his face. And this was the point. Hold on. I'm going to pause this. I'll be right back. And this was a point where I sat straight up out of my seat. Okay, it was not a seat. I was just laying down playing Pokemon, looking up, just glancing up to see what was going to happen, because it looked like, wasn't exactly sure what could have happened, because you never know at the end of the show. Lesnar's music drops. I marked out. The crowd marked out. I'm sure everybody marked out. Just looking on Twitter, some of the reactions, yeah. People marked out. This is a feud that people like to see. People wanted to see it. Here we go. People were expecting a Paul Heyman turn on CM Punk or CM Punk turning on Paul Heyman. There you go. So CM Punk, he's standing in the ring. Lesnar's music hit. That got my attention right away. I put down the DS, sat straight up in my seat, looked up at the TV to see what was going on. That got my full attention back. This is one of the moments that made this the best Raw of 2013. Arguably of the PG era. I'm not going to go that far, though. But anyway, Lesnar's stalking around the ring. He ends up grabbing a mic, going into the ring. CM Punk, sort of holding his arm a little bit, sort of because of how Del Rio had been working it. So he's sort of like nursing the injury there. Lesnar, he's got the mic. Looks like he's going to say something to CM Punk. Drops the mic, picks up Punk. F5. Punk is full-blown babyface, if he wasn't already. We're going to see a Lesnar-Punk feud. Paul Heyman completed the turn. Let's go. They have got so much leading up to SummerSlam. Now that they've got this going, we can finally say that the Triple H Lesnar feud is done. They're finally moving Lesnar onto something that people actually want to watch. I just can't wait for these next few pay-per-views. Money in the Bank, it's always a great pay-per-view because you have your young talent getting the chance to shine. Hopefully they don't pull Ziggler and have the winner of the Money in the Bank hold it for so long, then have them lose the belt. Hopefully this year the WWE Championship has a legit Money in the Bank. That's actually where I could potentially see RVD going. I was talking with John Dahomey on Skype. We're talking about, maybe possibly we could see Punk and Money in the Bank. No, not after that. Not after that. But, so yeah. RVD I could probably see going into WWE Money in the Bank. That'd be kind of cool if they started bringing guys back like they do at Royal Rumble for the Money in the Bank. Make it like a one-night return or something like that. I hope RVD's back longer than that because there's so many feuds you could do. Ziggler, Ambrose, Rollins, Bryan. You could probably come up with so many potential matches. Punk, maybe even Orton if they want to go back that far. I can't wait for these next two pay-per-views. The Lesnar-Punk feud, that's going to go to SummerSlam, if not beyond. Cena, Daniel Bryan, there are so many great possibilities. Mark Henry versus Cena, his retirement, Mark Henry's the greatest. Argue with me in the comments below. If you can argue strong enough, you're not going to... No. Mark Henry's the greatest. That's just my straight-up opinion. I know that's not going to be the same for everybody, but come on now. Who fakes a retirement that perfectly? Who has the emotion, the real tears, the facial expressions to be able to just make everybody believe that he was going to retire, and he swerved us all. Can't wait to see that match, even if he doesn't win, because you needed some way to get Cena into a feud for Money in the Bank that would be believable. This was the only way they could have done it. Ryback couldn't face him. There's nobody left to face Cena. Now we've got somebody. I want to know what you guys think on this Monday Night Raw in the comments below. Best Raw of 2013, in my opinion. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. It was not 100% perfect. I'm maybe even being a little generous with a 9.5, but I won't go any lower than a 9 out of 10 on this one. Greatest Raw of 2013. Some may argue of the PG era. What do you guys think in the comments below? Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new around here. If you managed to stick out the entire review to this point, be sure to hit that like button. Even let me know in the comments below if you made it to this point, because that's what I like to see. I like to get some interactiveness from my subscribers. Even if you just say something as simple as, good review or something like that. I just like to get comments from my subscribers. Let them know that they appreciate my videos. Get some constructive feedback, all that stuff. What'd you guys think of this Raw? What'd you think of my review? Keep on YouTubing.